Hello and welcome! Silrace here with WoW Classic or World of Warcraft Retail, because this actually works for both of them. You will note the background footage actually is the Retail World of Warcraft, because what I'm going to be talking about here is a simple macro to make your life easier as a damage dealer, which is being showcased in the footage in the background. So let's dive right into it. Let me show you the whole thing and then I'll break it down for you. Alright, so this is how the macro looks like. You'll realize that I created the same exact macro 4 times for 4 different abilities to mostly showcase that you can do this with anything that is harmful to a, well, hostile target in the game. If you are familiar with World of Warcraft macros, you probably look at that, okay, I understand what's going on here, I'm gonna try that out for myself. And if you are not familiar with World of Warcraft macros, I'm absolutely going to break this down for you in the next moment. Just realize that, well, this is workable with any ability that deals damage or something else to a hostile target. Whether you're trying to polymorph them, whether you're trying to deal damage to them with a Frostbolt, with a Corruption, Sinister Strike, what have you. So let's break it down. So first you have to obviously create a macro, which you can do by going to the main menu, as in typically hit ask, which opens the menu, and click macros, or you can just type /macro into your chat bar, whichever way you want to do it. The main component from creating the macro is just hitting new, and you leave the macro icon to this red question mark, and you just give it whatever name you want to give to the macro. Alright, name is up to you entirely, but remember to leave this question mark, which is at the top left corner, as the icon for the macro, and I will explain why once we get to the next step. So now you have a macro, and you can start typing into the little box there the actual commands for the macro. So but you start by doing this. Hashtag or #, whichever you want to call it, show tooltip, and then the name of the ability. I've left the Frostbolt there as an illustration. You obviously change it to whatever ability you want to do there in its place. And this ties in with leaving the icon of the macro with the red question mark, because this show tooltip, and then you specify what you want to replace the tooltip with, the spell itself, makes it so that the icon of the macro changes from the red question mark to this particular specified ability. Now when you put the macro into your hotbar, it will allow you to mouse over it, and you will see the actual tooltip as if it was the actual spell itself. This is what this particular bit does. It will mirror the cooldown of the ability as if it was the ability itself. This makes tracking the whole thing much easier, and also means that you can do this with every single ability, because you just make it say what ability is, and, you know, mirror the entire tooltip, cooldown, and everything on your hotbar. Alright, moving on to the main bits and pieces of this macro. What makes this macro work and what it does, basically. So you put a line break, as in essentially hit enter after the show tooltip and the ability name, and you insert this string here, /cast space square brackets, or in square brackets harm, and then right after in square brackets at target, and then after this you need to still hit space and put the name of the spell there, or whichever ability, hostile damage dealing ability you want there. I have omitted the name of the abilities here to focus on breaking this string down. So first of all, these two descriptors, what is happening here is every time you use the macro afterwards, is that it first checks the harm bed. Are you targeting a hostile target? Can you deal damage to this target? If it's a friendly target, then you cannot. In which case it moves over to checking the other condition, which is at target. If you look at the background footage, if you have been paying attention to the background footage going on there, I have mostly been targeting the group's tank when I am, you know, casting my Frostbolt and Ice Lance, because I have done this macro for both of those abilities. So what is happening is that with the macro is it checks, alright, I am not targeting a hostile target. The harm bet is omitted because, well, I am targeting a friend. A friendly target, essentially, the group's tank. So it moves on to the at target target, so I am dealing damage to the thing my team's tank is actively, beating on as well. I am essentially assisting my team's tank. Is that clear enough? If you want to play around with this, try reversing this too. Put at target first and at harm after. You will realize that you cannot solo because the harm descriptor needs to be there first to check if your target is hostile, because you will have to, sometimes target something else than whatever a friendly is targeting. That's what the at target is for. You can just target the team's tank and keep nuking away. And that's what makes this macro so strong. Alright, moving on, let me give final bits and pieces of information of why you should use this and why I use it. So move that thing out of the screen and let's just give the ending few words of why I think this is a macro you as a damage dealing class, or even as a healer with damage dealing spells on your bars, should do this on every single one of those. Because in every dungeon situation, especially in WoW Classic, where a threat for tanks is much harder to generate than it is in live, in retail WoW, always beating on the thing your tank is beating on, or in raid situations you might have a dedicated raid assist, as in you will always assist this one person, he will always be smacking or something you want to damage. You can just target that guy, either the team's tank or the main assist or whatever, and just keep pressing your attack button. Because you do not need to change your target because these folks are beating on whatever you want to be damaging anyway. In the case of WoW Classic, as mentioned, threat generation for tank is much harder. So you may not want to, damage all the things the tank is not damaging. You might want to just nuke down the one target the tank is damaging, so as to not draw the aggro onto yourself, away from the tank, right? And of course, you still need the ability to cast these spells on a hostile target when you are outside of group. And that's what the harm bit is for. Or even in group, sometimes you need to be able to, for example, multi-dots a group of things. Like where you, as a warlock, cast corruption on every single monster in a group. And that's what the harm descriptor is there for. You just, that allows you to target the hostile target and cast a spell on it. But you can then go back to targeting a friendly target, that main tank or main assist or whatever have you, and keep hammering away with the same ability. And that is why I think every damage dealer can benefit from this particular macro, because it doesn't really require you to change your playstyle at all if you don't want to, but it allows you the option to. It allows you the option to either always find the correct target, or it allows you to just target the team's, tank or main assist or what have you, and just hammer away with your keys. Final word on this. I would not recommend doing this for things like polymorph, fear or whatever, because those things you probably want to always be casting on the correct target instead of accidentally, using one of those spells on the tank's target. So just to point that out. And final end word for macro enthusiasts out there. Yes, you can input, let's use that word. You can input /use instead of /cast at the beginning of the string. However, I find personally it's much easier to explain this to people who are new to macros using /cast, because that actually represents it much better. Like you're casting something, you're casting hostile abilities, you're casting spells, whatever. instead of, you know, using potions or so forth. Anyway, hopefully this was enjoyable, hopefully this was helpful. Thank you very much for watching.